Hey gals, welcome back to Binge Free Bestie, the podcast where we ditch diets, break free from binge and emotional eating, and finally make peace with food and our bodies. I'm your host, Nick Garbedia. I'm a registered therapist who's been there herself. Binge eating, body shame, the whole exhausting cycle. I know it inside out. But here's the good news. Food freedom is totally possible, and my food freedom method is how you will get there. Every week on the potty, I'm going to be sharing real evidence-based tools from my therapy practice and my own recovery to help you to break up with binge and emotional eating and build a calmer, more empowered relationship with food. So, if you're done with the diet cycle and you're ready to reclaim your energy, your confidence, and your life, then you're in the right place. Hey besties, welcome back to the potty. I'm Nick, and if you're new here, then this space is where we're going to talk honestly about the psychology behind binge and emotional eating, things like body image struggles, and also, of course, diet culture nonsense. And of course, I'm not going to just talk about those things. I'm going to give you some tools that you can heal your relationship with food and eating and your body. So, speaking of which, today we're going to be talking about something I think you're probably going to recognize immediately, because we're going to be unpacking what I like to call the nostalgia snack trap. What on earth am I talking about? Well, I am talking about why certain childhood snacks can end up having a really weird amount of power over us as adults. So, let's talk about it, besties. So I want to start this off with a little confession. So for years, there were two foods that literally sat on a pedestal within my brain. The first of which was burger rings, obsessed, and the second was sour cream and chives brainwaves. So I'm from New Zealand. These are two chips that I always had as a kid. And they are two snacks that have had so much power over me, it blew my mind. I did not trust myself around these at all. So in response, I had a wee rule. And the rule was that they were never allowed in the house. Because in my mind, if they were in the pantry, then I would absolutely demolish them. So the only time then that I bought them was, of course, during my binges. So I would go to the supermarket, and everything I would be putting in the basket would be those naughty foods, those foods that I was planning to binge on. And so, yeah, burger rings were in the trolley, brainwaves were in the trolley every single time. Like, if I was going to have a binge, I was eating those. So the way that I ate them as well was always the same. It was really like a bit of a ritual. Most of the time, you'd find me eating them in my car. I would stop somewhere after the supermarket trip where I'd get that haul, and I'd just sit there and literally inhale the bag, watching things on my phone. Full autopilot. And I know so many of you watching this will understand that feeling of autopilot, right? It's like you're looking down on yourself, bird's eye view, and almost zoning out while you're eating. And you're probably not even tasting the food. I know that I didn't. Really, it is just inhaling it. It's like you're just trying to switch off your brain for a few minutes, and really you are doing that. So other times I used to do it was when I was at uni as well. I'd take the chippies back to my room and I'd eat them alone. I did not want my flatmates to see how often I was eating them. I was really, really embarrassed about it. And when I say often, I was eating them every day, every single day. I was buying the chips, I was hiding them away until people wouldn't see me, smuggle them into my room, and then inhale the whole bag again. And afterwards, and you'll probably know this feeling if you are a binge eater, that wave of shame. That's sitting there and thinking, what the heck is wrong with me? Why can't I control myself around something as simple as a bag of chips? And so this is something I see constantly with the women in the Binge Free Bestie community. That secret eating, the binge eating on childhood snack foods and treats. And I mean, everyone who binges seems to have a food like this. A food that has like a really weirdly powerful hold over them. a food that sits up on this wee pedestal in your mind. And it doesn't have to be chips. That was just my particular thing. Maybe it's chocolate. Maybe it's ice cream. Maybe it's focaccia or pasta. But there's usually like one or just a couple of specific foods where it feels like the rules change. Like you can either have none of it or suddenly you have to be eating all of it. So yeah, my pedestal food were chippies, burger rings in particular, and those grown waves. If they were around, I would not be able to stop thinking about them until I had them. And if I bought them, I would feel like I had to eat them immediately. It could never be this like, I'll just have a few, just put a few chippies in a bowl and we'll eat them and that's enough. No. So yeah, the solution for me was to just not keep them in the house at all, which, spoiler alert, and especially if you've listened to other Binge Bestie episodes, doing this, not allowing yourself to ever have the food, does not solve the problem. So when I really started unpacking binge eating, both personally and professionally, something really clicked. And I want to share this with you today. Food like chips or whatever that thing is, the fairy bread, the cakes, they can be a bit of like emotional time machines. And I know that sounds a bit weird or dramatic, but just stick with me here. Our brains store memories, and they do this by using sensory anchors. So taste, smell, texture, the crunch of something, the seasoning, the smell, the sound when you open the bag, right? All of these sensory details get stored in your brain alongside emotional experiences. So, if certain foods were a part of moments in your life where maybe you felt relaxed or safe or rewarded or comforted, then what happens is your brain starts to link that food with those feelings. So you see where I'm going with this now? So think about your childhood for a second. Snacks and like treaty foods, right? They often happened during times of like downtime, after school, come home, watch Harry Potter, have some popcorn, or watching TV, hanging out with your friends at sleepovers. Of course, we all had all of the treat foods then. I mean, maybe treaty foods were just for weekends or party food. So these were moments where life was so much simpler and you also didn't have any responsibilities yet. So when your brain experiences those flavors or those textures again as an adult, it doesn't just taste like food, right? It's remembering those feelings. So fast forward to adult life. Now you're juggling work, you've got responsibilities, relationships, you've actually got mental load nowadays, stress, and your nervous system is going out of whack and getting overwhelmed. And our brain wants to start looking for the fastest route back to that comfort, back to a sense of safety, back to a sense of control. And what it's going to do is it's going to think historically and ask, well, where have I felt relief before? And if your brain has learned that certain foods were linked with times of comfort, then that's where it goes. So you catching my drift here? Quick pause here, besties, because I want to share with you a free resource that might really, really help you. So if you're struggling with overeating, binges, emotional eating, or maybe food just feels like it has a little bit too much power over you, then I have created a free guide. It's called the Emotional Eater's Fix. So inside this guide, I'm breaking down some of the real reasons why this pattern has been happening. And I'm going to walk you through a few simple tools that you can start using straight away to shift your relationship with food and your body. It's totally free. You can just grab it through the link in the show notes. All right, let's jump back into the episode. So for me, we come back to that chip example. Chips became part of my decompression ritual after work or when I was really struggling at uni. And at the time, those chips really, truly had me in a chokehold. I mean, example was I was actually used to be studying to be a nurse. And big spoiler alert, obviously that didn't work out because here I am a therapist. I'm not a nurse. But during that time, when I was on placements, I was honestly really miserable, really, really miserable. I'd just gone through a trauma. I was doing this really intensive study. I knew that I wanted to help people, but once I actually got into the hospital system and I started working in that environment, I realized that it was not going to be the right space for me or the right structure for the life that I was envisioning and who I am. And it just felt so heavy. I was supporting people through some really, really hard stuff all day, holding space for them emotionally, having to be switched on constantly, processing my own trauma that I was experiencing at that time. And I was being bullied by a group of older nurses on the ward, which was such an awful experience. I don't know if you know, but there is a saying that nurses eat their young. And yeah, that was so true for me. So by the end of the day of being in that environment, I was just so done, so exhausted, so emotionally drained. And my brain would just say, chips, have some chips. And no, I wasn't hungry. I needed relief. And somewhere along the way, my brain had linked chips with comfort, with switching off, with getting just like a tiny moment of pleasure and joy. So that is why whenever I was feeling a bit dysregulated or a bit wobbly, I would turn to my old childhood familiar fave, chippies. Because I believed that those foods were bad or naughty and I shouldn't have been eating them, I restricted them. As I said, I never kept them in the house, which meant that every time I bought a bag, it felt forbidden, felt like a failure. And when I did allow myself to have them, which was only during a binge, I would binge that whole bag and then I would feel very ashamed of myself. So I would restrict again. And then the cycle would keep repeating. Control, restrict, binge, shame, repeat, repeat, repeat. And this went on for years and years and years. It is hard. And I know you might be seeing yourself in that cycle too. And I hope that you're just getting a sense of solidarity from that. So what actually changed the cycle for me? It wasn't learning more discipline or eating more or less chips. It was just having this curiosity, starting there. And instead of asking, why the hell can't I control myself around chippies? I started asking myself questions like, well, what is my nervous system needing right now? Because the binge eating, as I learned over time, the binges were actually trying to solve something. Stress usually, or their emotional overload, exhaustion from being on the ward all day, loneliness for not feeling like I belonged anywhere, overwhelm. So food isn't random. It is a coping strategy. And I imagine the same might be said for some of your powerful foods. So fast forward to today, I can have chips in the house. I still eat burger rings. I still eat ground waves, whatever. I love them both, still do, always will. But they just don't have the same power over me anymore. And nothing has really changed in terms of the fact that I'm trying harder. It's because that food has just stopped carrying the emotional job that it used to. And my comfort is coming from other places now. I'm taking time for rest. I'm connecting with people. I actually regulate my emotions. And that's what food freedom looks like. Food goes back to just being food. You can enjoy it. You can have the chippies, have your cake and eat it too. But it's not your core comfort. So I want to ask you something. Is there a food in your life that feels like it might have this strange emotional power over you? Is there a food you feel like you cannot keep in the house? Or a food that you only buy when you're planning a binge? Because if there is, this has probably nothing to do with the actual food itself. It might be what your brain has learned about that food what that food meant. And once you can start to peel back those layers, so sit down for journal and figure this out. Once you can understand that, you can really start changing the pattern. So I wanted to keep this one short and sweet today. But before we wrap up, I want to share something really exciting. I'm so excited about this. Okay, so I've got my program, The Breakup, and women move through my food freedom method as part of the program. So we're learning how to re-nourish their bodies, we're regulating their nervous system, and we're rewiring their relationship with food. And we do that by going through the program modules together. And I've got a community where we've got monthly group calls. But my exciting announcement is that I've just opened up something new alongside that. So the cool, exciting news is that I finally have the capacity to take on a few women to work privately with me whilst they move through the breakup. So it's called the Inner Circle. And basically what that looks like is you'll join the breakup and then you will level up and add on private, intensive one-on-one support with me as you work through your recovery journey. I'm so bloody excited about this because it means that I get to work much more closely with some of you through the process. I get to know you, get to know your history, get to know your story. And of course, then I'm going to tailor this whole process to you. Now, I'm only going to work with 5 women at a time. So I really want to keep it high touch. I want to keep it intimate. And I really want to be able to just hone in on the women that I'm working with. So thank you so much for the women who have already started reaching out to me about this, coming into the community. I am absolutely stoked. And if this is something that you're curious about too, just DM me. You can say the word done, or you can head to the link in my bio and explore it a little bit more. We can have a back and forth chit chat and just see if it's a good fit for you. So that's my exciting news for today. And that is today's potty. So what do I want you to do going away from this week's episode? First, have a little ponder. Ask yourself, if there's a snack in your life that feels like it has a little bit too much power over you, have a ponder and think, okay, you know what? Might not just be this snack. Might be the story and the comfort that my brain has attached to this snack. And the beautiful thing is that all stories can be rewritten. So I will see you next week, besties. Hope this has been super helpful. Remember, reach out anytime if you want to debrief from an episode or you've got something to say or a piece of feedback. I love chatting with you all. Until then, I'll catch you next week and take care. Ciao. All right, besties, that's a wrap for today. If you want to go deeper, check out the links in my show notes. You're going to find free resources, ways we can work together, and more details on my signature program, The Breakup. This is your roadmap to help you to break free from binge and emotional eating for good. If this episode has helped you, please hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you're feeling extra kind, leaving a quick review really helps this podcast to reach more women who need it. Take care of your beautiful self, bestie, and I'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.